distinct privilege and pleasure to introduce Marcell tonight. Quick note, he's been on my radio program, I don't know how many times over the course of the last year and a half. He really started to kind of dial in and get focused in on election integrity by calling my show well in advance of the 2024 election, because like everybody else, he saw the fraud that took place in 2020 and the fraud that took place in 2022 in the midterm elections, and he knew, how extraordinarily important it was going to be for this election to be free and fair in Ohio and around the country, at least to the extent that we could change it. And I was just blown away by his knowledge, blown away by his understanding of the laws of the state of Ohio, election law, what the various forms of fraud were, the problems with mail-in ballots, the problem with the drop box, the problems with the machines, the problems with the rolls, the problems with making sure that only American citizens are registered to vote, and all the rest. He was just so overflowing with knowledge. I was blown away. We quickly entered into something of a texting relationship with myself and also our friend Jack Windsor, who does such great work for the Ohio Press Network down in Columbus. And almost every 3 or 4 days, Marcell is sending us another piece of information that we didn't know, and Jack and I are like, all right, I get him tomorrow, you can have him on Thursday. Because we want to share that information. And it came to a point where, about a month or two ago, and I just kind of asked Marcell on the radio, I said, look, you can try to share all this information with a great candidate, I suppose, but I don't think anybody knows it as well as you do. Have you thought about running yourself? And he was a little bit coy, because I think clearly he had, but it was shortly thereafter that the wheels were set in motion to where we are tonight. And so, without further ado, let me bring you this real introduction. Free, fair, and honest elections are the lifeblood of our nation. They are the foundation of this constitutional republic, the essence of democracy and the safeguard of our way of life. Yet with each passing election cycle, more Americans are left disillusioned, questioning whether our elections remain untouched by fraud, error, and manipulation. This growing frustration is a call to action, a call to restore trust and integrity in the very system that defines us as free people. But there is hope in the face of all of that fraud. Today, we stand at a pivotal moment. We have a president and potentially a new Secretary of State and potentially a new governor in this state ready to champion true election integrity alongside millions of Ohioans. And together, we can reclaim the promise of elections that are beyond reproach. Tonight, I'm going to introduce someone who embodies this mission. Marcell is not just an expert in Ohio's election systems and processes, as I described. He's a patriot who dedicated 20 years of his life to serving our nation as an Air Force intelligence officer, answering the call to protect and preserve the freedoms that we hold dear. He's been my unwavering advocate of election integrity. Every time I talk about it, he's my go-to guy. His dedication is unmatched. And for those who have followed his work, you already know what Marcell brings. Unparalleled competence, credibility, and leadership. His analysis has exposed vulnerabilities in Ohio's election systems. His proposals have helped shape legislation, aligned President Trump's call for election reform to state resolutions, and even drove the national conversation on voter eligibility, verification, risk controls, and election security. His vision is clear, his solutions are bold, and his commitment is unwavering. Marcell is not just a leader, he's a man of action, authenticity, and character, and he understands election integrity is not just a policy issue, it's a moral imperative. He's ready to lead the charge to preserve, protect, and secure the honesty and fairness of Ohio's elections. It is my privilege to introduce Marcell Strbich from Dayton, Ohio. Tonight he stands before you a champion of election integrity and a candidate for Ohio's Secretary of State. And we invite you to hear his story, his mission, and his vision for a future where every Ohioan can trust in the sanctity of our elections. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Marcell.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't think I've ever heard as fired up of an introduction like that in 20 years in the military. And trust me, I've been at a lot of levels in the military and met a lot of influential people. And Bob, you are the reason we trust the analysis, because time in and time again, you hit at the real issues that we're concerned about. And tonight, I think what we got brought together for tonight was to talk about what is the message that we sent on November 5th, 2024, when we elected President Trump. It's the question. And the question is, what has Columbus done to respond to that call for state reforms in our election systems? What we see, not what we hear, is elected officials swapping positions and roles consistently, entering this race, then changing their minds, going into the governor to the Secretary of State. What we need in the Secretary of State position once and for all is someone who wants to do the job and not build a political career. Somebody who wants this office and not any office. I want you to know a little bit about me first, right? I grew up in a first-generation American family. It was really no choice but to take on work and discipline and love of country, because when you have to come from a society of repression, which is what my parents did, and I'm blessed to have my father George here and my brother, we had to work as a family in the restaurant business. So service is something that's ingrained in me and something that I've had to go out and building connections with people and relations comes hand in hand with that. Understanding what it is that people need. And it doesn't matter who comes into your restaurant, you serve them with the utmost ability. And so as I grew up, I was part of that family unit. And one of the first impactful things that happened to me was 9/11. I think everybody in this room understands the fear and the resolve that we had during 9/11 in terms of what we were going to do. And for me, it was a no-brainer. We had to go overseas, and we had to address the issue so that it didn't come into the United States. And from that point forward, I spent my time in the military going forward in foreign lands, ironically helping them build their societies for 10, 15, 20 years, working with the tip of the spear, the Rangers in Afghanistan, working in flying operations over Iraq to protect our soldiers so as many Ohioans and Americans can come home to their families. And I will tell you that was the most impactful experience of my life. In 2010, we were in a surge. And I remember working 12, 13 hours a night, 7 days a week, because operators were hitting the objectives every single night. And the objective was to dismantle terror networks. And every now and then, one of our great warriors would fall, and they would gather us together on the base in a parade formation. And they would have cameras like we have here, and they would have a pair of boots that would sit there as a symbol. And the senior enlisted person would announce to everybody, he would say, "Sergeant Jackson," silence. "Sergeant Jackson," he'd do it 3 times, and then they would say, "Sergeant Jackson is not here." And then it would proceed with the rest of the ceremony. And we did that on camera so that the loved ones would have a memorial, a closure for their loved ones. And that's when I really knew that this is what it was about. It was a tight bond between us. And I don't regret any of that, regardless of the way that the political objectives worked out. We all know what that was. But that was a big part of my call to service. And I wanted to share that with you, that we honor those always, and that carry that type of character with me in every role, in every position. The problems and issues in our elections have everything to do with the leadership deficit, public oversight, and accountability. I got involved in this after I got out of the Air Force because I started seeing issues in Montgomery County. I asked questions. I wanted an investigation. I didn't get it. So I decided to continue working with groups like this across the state. I didn't know where it would take me. But I'm the type of person that I don't do anything with a half foot. I go in all the way. I made contact with Bob Frantz and Jack Windsor. They gave me a voice. I talked about non-citizen registration and voting. It was a problem. Our Secretary of State at the time had just finished his campaign for U.S. Senate. He wasn't talking about it. For 5 years, have we even asked the Department of Homeland Security if they had non-citizen data that we could see, that we could ensure? And then I found out there was over 236,000 identity credentials which were issued to potentially non-citizens in the state. And I said, this is wide open. We have to do more. And so at that summer, more things happened. We had third-party voter groups who actually defrauded our registration process. And I started raising the handle on that. I organized a coalition of people across our state, groups like McMahon and others, to get people interested and ready to address that issue. And I was able to get attention all the way to the Ohio Supreme Court when I brought a case for writ of mandamus against our director. He was not training us as poll workers to identify non-citizen IDs. So I did all of these things while I was also bringing legislation forward to close these gaps, to close these loopholes. 100% voter ID. Do you know in Ohio that 1 million people vote by absentee ballot without a voter ID? How can we claim that we have voter ID laws when that's not the case? So that's quite a bit of unequal application. And I worked on that throughout the summer and finally got the Secretary of State to come out and actually address it in a letter to 27 State House reps. And he finally started to speak to these issues. And that's the power of us. It's the power of people. Like Bob was saying, we may vote, but unless we keep pressing and we keep pushing, we will not prevail. But if we continue in that way, we will move the needle, and we are moving it. It needs to move faster. That's what I think. Let me tell you what our elections have become. Our elections have become about ballot gathering contests, not vote earning campaigns. We have an election season, not an election day. It's unnecessary. Why are we allowing this process that opens the gate for groups like the third parties to go out and collect those ballots, to go into elder homes and register and ballot harvest, to go to drop boxes? Drop off how many ballots? I don't know. I talked to a gentleman in Mahoney. It took him a year to get access to footage of the drop box. When he got it, he told me this is so grainy, I couldn't even see the license plate of the person, let alone however many ballots were being put into these drop boxes. We don't need that. Centralized counting. We don't understand who counts our votes. I can tell you it's the political parties and it's the vendors. So we allowed this progression, and we need to swing this back. We need a bold, courageous, and Secretary of State with conviction to do that. And I am the candidate because I believe that this can be done in 4 years with the right people at the top. And I'm ready to do that. And I understand what's happening in the system. More than I can tell you tonight, because it's certainly complicated. But I will tell you this. The people who want this job, they're fixated on their electability. They're not fixated on verifying their elections. And every single cycle, they're concerned if they take a controversial position, they may never be able to get elected because they want that higher office. Right. I didn't want this job. In many ways, my family needs me. But this country, this state needs me too. And if I understand what can be done, and I have the support of you, the people of Ohio, I can carry this forward and we can affect this change. It's not hard. We do it piece by piece. I want you to know that. So at the end of the day, it's our election administration that needs guidance, clarity, and conviction. We need to relook at the way we support. The Board of Elections need both the information to be able to qualify that verifiability, and they need the mandate. And then we've got to start with a Secretary of State who wants to do that. I want to help our Board of Elections. I want them to have that ability. And it's going to take somebody who's willing to work with that in the legislature and be able to do that. I don't know what it means, honestly. I think we have to get away from controlled messaging and open dialogue. You can ask me anything. I will be honest with you, and if I don't know the answer, what I was taught in the military is to tell you, I don't know the answer, but let me get back to you. That's the professional way to do it. People don't often talk in those terms, and I think it's necessary. The next 4 years is not going to be a cakewalk. We have to ensure that we do not fall into managed decline, incrementalism, and retreat. Our constitutional republic depends on defending and strengthening our elections. Selfless, assertive, courageous leadership is needed in that Secretary of State's office to protect, preserve, and strengthen our election system. Our mission is clear. for the sake of our children, my 2-year-old, 6-year-old, and 8-year-old, we must restore faith in our elections. If we fail in this mission, we will continue to turn over that issue into their generation. It will divide us. It will dilute our most precious civil right, the right to legitimately choose who governs us. No more politicians and no more parties telling us that at the end of the day, the other side cheated. If we have the ability to audit those elections, and we will be able to ensure that they cannot make that argument. In 2026, Ohioans, you have a choice. You can have your candidate selected for you, or you can have somebody as a political outsider, somebody who's battle-tested, an America First conservative. I'm a dedicated problem solver. The Vice Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff trusted me to help build our weapons systems back up from 20 years of decline from fighting those nation-state wars. If the Vice Chairman and the top military intelligence official can trust me, then you can trust me that I can do the same, and I can bring our election systems back from the 2005 era and bring them up to a 2025 security control. For 20 years, I've kept this country safe. From terrorists, I've done 114 combat missions. I was called upon to serve in that Pentagon, and I did it at a time when it was very difficult. The President Biden and that administration did not make it easy for the military that came out of those wars. They introduced these mandates, and they basically looked to push us, those that were constitutionally bound, out of the military. You know that story. 8,000 military were banished. Now they're asking for us to come back. I committed to myself when I was in the military that if I can't change what they did to us then, I will come out and I will pick a task and a purpose. And I will give everything of myself to accomplish that task and purpose. And to me, the election system is the basis of our rights. My parents didn't have that right in a communist country. They taught me what it's like when you have to go to jail because you practice your faith. That happened to my grandfather. For 6 months, he was thrown into jail because he practiced his faith. So today we stand at a pivotal moment. With the President, a new Secretary of State and Governor coming, we are ready to champion the integrity of elections. Together we will reclaim the promise of free, fair, and honest elections untouched by fraud, error, and manipulation. Together we will make Ohio the beacon of election integrity to follow. With your prayers, your vote, your generosity, I will, without hesitation, deploy one more time and deliver results for you, the Ohioans. You deserve a Secretary of State to tackle this issue. Our President deserves support and backup. I am the candidate in this race to deliver that. Join me in this fight. Thank you, and God bless you.